This is the Microsoft Cloud Show, episode 207. Today, we're going to sit down with Paul Stubbs from Microsoft to talk about the bot framework, continuing our series on Microsoft's artificial intelligence, recorded live Wednesday, August the 9th, 2017.
While many IT teams struggle with the impact of deploying Office 365, Zscaler customers are experiencing 40% or greater network performance across file download times, as well as TCP and DNS connection times, compared to using next-gen firewalls and UTMs to route Office 365 traffic locally to the internet. While you may know Zscaler as the leader in cloud security, they also have hundreds of customers who are processing over 1.2 petabytes of Office 365 traffic monthly through the Zscaler cloud. Visit www.zscaler.com to learn more.
Hello, everybody. This is Andrew. I am flying solo today. I'll explain why that is in just a little bit here. This week, I am actually attending the SP Fest, or the SharePoint Fest conference in Seattle, Washington. It's first time that I've been able to attend or be a part of this conference. I'm actually presenting a few sessions this week in a workshop around SharePoint framework and around SharePoint webhooks. But heard a lot of great things about this show over the years, and finally was fortunate enough to be able to be involved in it and present and attend it. So it's been a really fun experience. And the neat thing about it is when you do some of these shows, some shows have the same general audience that kind of comes around, or the same speakers. And so you kind of see the same old people that you always see at the shows that you're used to doing. So it's neat because there's a lot of people at this conference, specifically speakers and attendees, that I don't get a chance to see very often, or I haven't been able to interact with in the past. So this time getting to see a lot of new faces and talk to some people, and finding actually some of you guys, some of you guys that are interested in what we're doing at the podcast. So I appreciate everybody that's come out to the show and also shared with us some of the stories that you've had in listening to some of the episodes on our podcast. Kind of a funny story. We had a panel with Microsoft, a handful of the MVPs that they had over to the Microsoft campus. And some of us, about 5 or 6 of us, were up on stage, and there was a bunch of people from Microsoft that were in the audience, and they were asking us questions. We were the panelists, and it was kind of experience that we've had in the field and what we've seen with customers and those kinds of things. As you would suspect, that when you're in Redmond and you're involved in engineering, planning out products and stuff, you don't get as much of an opportunity to interface with customers as much as people in the field do, or MVPs do. And so this is a great opportunity for Microsoft to get feedback from kind of like your frontline forces and stuff that are not paid by Microsoft. And so they are, have a little bit different perspective. But it was kind of funny because of a few of the people from Microsoft that I hadn't had a chance to meet yet, and their different roles. They'd come up and they say, hey, we're listeners of the podcast, and we love it how some people that are out in the field are also some of our biggest critics. I got 1 or 2 people from Microsoft were like staring me down when I said that. I was like, yeah, I might be a bit honest at times. But it was fun. Had a great dialogue, shared a lot of experiences. In turn, also asked a lot of really great questions. So we had a really good time there. The next thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is our Ignite plan for the podcast. So coming up at the end of September in Orlando, Florida, Microsoft is going to hold one of their 3 big shows that they do throughout the year. It's the Ignite conference, which is, I guess you can think about it as the replacement for, the Tech Ed conference years ago. So this is the 3rd time that they're doing it. First time was in Chicago 2 years ago. Last year was in Atlanta. And thankfully this time it's in Orlando, which is just in my backyard, about 2 hours away. So I get to drive to the conference. So CJ and I will both be at the conference. CJ is going to obviously have his primary responsibilities with Hyperfish, his company, but he's going to be involved in the podcast quite a bit. We'll do a couple interviews here and there. Like we did last year, we'll have some, wrap up quick news bites that we'll push out hopefully every day with some updates on what's going on at Ignite. What are the big news? What are the big announcements? And then we're also going to do a live show like we did last year. I'm not entirely sure how the live show is supposed to work, to be completely frank. I know that we're recording. I know we're doing it. I know we're scheduled for Tuesday of the week of Ignite, I think at like 10 or 11 o'clock Eastern time, which is GMT, I think minus 4 hours. So one of the things that they're doing a little bit differently this time, last year they gave us a link and just said, hey, if you just put this little bit of HTML on your website, you'll just grab our stream and be able to stream it straight from your website. This time, though, that they are giving us the ability to stream it straight from Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So frankly, I got to figure out how to go get credentials from both of those environments and then hand them over to Microsoft so that they can be ready to stream straight to our YouTube channel and our Facebook Live channel as well. So we'll have information about that out on the website. If you want to get the details on that, just make sure you sign up for the mailing list, because ahead of Ignite, we will definitely be pushing out some of our stuff. But I would, encourage you, please, what do you want to see us do at the live show? CJ and I we'll definitely be covering some of the news, some of the great things that we've seen from the keynotes. It's only going to be Tuesday, so I'm sure there'll be more news coming out at Ignite. But, we'd love to find, get some questions from listeners that we can potentially address while we're doing the live show. Now, in addition to what we'll do, we're going to also grab interviews at Ignite from a bunch of other individuals while we're there, both from Microsoft and people out in the field. So, hey, if you're at Ignite or if you're going to be at Ignite and you want to link up, maybe CJ and I can come up with a little idea of doing a little podcast meetup, and maybe see people who are, also doing like stuff or want to kind of chat a bit. I guess, hey, you can actually, CJ and I can meet you guys in the person instead of just, we just speaking into a microphone once a week and having that get pushed out. So we'd love to be able to meet everybody and see everybody. We are going to have stickers. I just got mine this week for the new logo. I don't think we're going to have T-shirts. Frankly, the way that they do T-shirts, you got to have a big run of T-shirts printed. As we've said in previous episodes, we now have a Cafe Press store where you can order a T-shirt and wear it around and proudly show your support for the podcast. The T-shirts are not cheap. They're, unfortunately, Cafe Press does a 1-by-1 print. So each print, I think, is something like $25 for a T-shirt. They do run a little bit on the big side from what we've seen. But if you want a shirt, you can go ahead and go grab it there. Just to answer one question that people have asked us, no, they're not a little on the pricey side, because CJ and I get a kickback for it, or the podcast gets a kickback for it. We don't get anything for it. We just put it out there because people have asked about T-shirts. And it's like, hey, we can go get one from Cafe Press. So if you just go to cafepress.com/Microsoft Cloud Show, you'll go there to where you can see that. Okay, so let me transition a little bit and let's talk about what the subject of the show is today. Like I said, I'm in Seattle, Washington this week, and I'm sat down with Paul Stubbs to talk about the bot framework. CJ and I were both going to do this today, but a little bit of a conflict came up at the last minute. CJ wasn't able to join us. It was going to be either CJ dialing in a remote and then trying to interview with Paul while I was present. And we just figured, hey, this would be a little bit easier, make a little bit more sense. And frankly, the audio was going to sound better if we didn't have to kind of dial things in. So I'm just flying solo this week. A couple weeks ago, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you may have noticed that we didn't publish an episode. We missed a week. Especially it was episode 206, or it was supposed to be episode 206, where we didn't ship an episode. This is episode 207. And what we found was when I sat down and interviewed Paul Stubbs a couple weeks ago about this same topic, about the bot framework, we weren't sure. This is the joys of doing podcasting. We weren't sure what happened, but the audio file from Paul just was completely mangled. And it's nobody's fault. It's just sometimes these things happen when you're doing this. It's one of the challenges with it's probably the hardest part about doing podcasting is that when you record an interview or you record an episode, you really don't know if things are going to be okay until you're done. And you've just invested all the time recording it. And so a lot of times when you're dealing with guests, you can't just grab their schedule and try and do it again, redo it once you find out that things didn't work. So it's a bit frustrating. We didn't realize that the file was not recoverable until right before we were going to publish the show or produce the show, which is kind of putting us right in the last minute. So we kind of put ourselves behind an 8 ball there. Our producer that helps us do the show, or engineer the show and produce the episodes, he couldn't fix it, which frankly, that says how bad the file was, because Rade, our producer, has done an amazing job in the past. But when we give him something, and he's never been able to, he's always been able to fix any of the issues that we've thrown at him, except this time, which meant that we really screwed it up. So at any rate, I was able to link up today, with Paul Stubbs and sit down with him in his office and talk a little bit more about the bot framework. It's not a very long interview, so it's about 20, 25 minutes or so. The nice thing about this, though, one of the things that Paul and I did, we just dove right in and started talking about what the bot framework is. So I've spent a little bit of time playing around with the bot framework. So I'll give you a little bit of a heads up on this. If you go to botframework.com, you find everything about what the bot framework is. And what Microsoft has done with this is that we see more and more of a discussion from people and companies building bots, and it's kind of like the new rage right now. So what are these things? What would you use them for? essentially what a bot is just another way to have an interactive experience with a system. We've got websites, we've got mobile apps, but now what this does is this gives us a way to do some sort of like a chat-based interface. And as we'll talk about with Paul, the bot framework makes things easier because there's multiple ways you can have that discussion. You can do it over Skype, so just pure text. You can do it over text. You can do it over Facebook Messenger. You can do it over voice maybe. But these different experiences have different capabilities and limitations. So for example, on text, it's just if I'm texting someone or sending an SMS message to a bot, I only can send text. However, with Skype, then I have the ability to maybe, show a little image or show some options there. Or like if I'm in Microsoft Teams, I have a way to give them an option. So say I want to send an email to Mike, then the bot can go back and say, which Mike? And it gives me a list of all the Mikes that are in my contact list or the people I most frequently contact. And so you need to have different ways of being able to interact with these things. But what you can really think of a bot is really just a very thin veneer that's interfacing with some back-end system. It's really just calling a web service, as Paul's going to talk about. And so what you need to do then is you kind of have to think about how are people going to interact with it. Paul's got some really great examples and also some really good guidance, design guidance on things that you want to think about when you build your bot. So with that, why don't we go ahead and transition over and let's listen to Paul Stubbs talk to us a little bit about bots today in episode 207.
What if you could take any process your teams use to get work done and make it happen automatically? What if you could save countless hours and help people work better together? Nintex can make that happen. With the Nintex platform, work flows from person to person, system to system, to the cloud and back, and it flows in and out of the tools that you use every day. With Nintex, work flows so your teams can work smarter, work faster, and be more connected than ever. The Microsoft Cloud Show is sponsored by Valid.nl. Valid's motto is stay ahead. Its mission is to enable its customers to excel in their business through the innovative use of IT. Valid is always on the lookout for new colleagues. Are you interested in all things happening in Azure, whether in infrastructure, SQL Server, Office 365, BI, SharePoint, or .NET? Look them up on Valid.nl.
I'm sitting here at the Microsoft office with Paul Stubbs from Microsoft to talk about the bot framework. Paul, how are you today?
Good.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for joining us today on the show. Why don't you go ahead and first introduce yourself to our listeners so they know who's talking to them today.
Good, yeah. So I'm Paul Stubbs. I'm Director of Product Marketing for Artificial Intelligence and Research here at Microsoft, and we're focusing on conversation interfaces, bot framework, and other AI technologies.
Awesome. So I know we had gotten together before a couple of weeks ago and talked about the same topic here. And of course, our listeners heard that we had a mess up with the recording. So I really appreciate you taking the time today and sit down with me and we can essentially redo it. Thankfully, I'm in person here, so we don't have a problem. We won't have a problem with the internet's help working on us. But I guess to start off here, we sat down a while ago and we did talk about an overview of the Microsoft's AI story and the three different pillars. And today we want to talk more about what the bot framework's all about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, what is the bot framework to Microsoft? What is it used for?
Yeah, so the bot framework helps you build conversational interfaces. Probably most commonly people think of those as like chat bots is one of the most common manifestations, but a conversational interface can appear in all sorts of different form factors. But the bot framework really helps you build those bots, if you will, and then surface them in a variety of channels. And channels where things that we think of like Slack would be a channel, or Facebook Messenger would be a channel, Skype for Business or Skype or Microsoft Teams. These are all different channels. And what's great about the bot framework is it allows you to write your bot once in either C# or Node.js, and then surface that one bot in any number of channels just by choosing the channel by clicking on it and setting some metadata, and your bot is supported in multiple channels.
Oh, cool. Very cool. So channels, using that for different ways of people being able to take advantage of it. Can a bot have multiple channels that it talks to? So do you have one bot per channel, or does that make sense? Or would you have one bot that can actually talk on multiple channels to different things coming in?
Yeah, so it allows you to write the bot once and have it available on all the channels. Now, obviously, different channels support different amount of functionality. For example, the SMS channel is going to be a much different experience than the Skype channel or even the Cortana channel. And so you have to take some of that into account when you're building your bots. But the bot framework, in essence, abstracts away most of those complexities and allows you to just write your core logic and then have it surface. Now, what we see is a lot of people are also experimenting with that as a one level, but taking it another level. How can they write their bots so that they have different experiences based on different channels, right? So if I'm surfacing my bot in Kik, I may want to have a different personality or flavor than if I'm exposing my bot on Skype for Business. These are some of the things that you have to take into account when you think about how you write your bot. And so when you write it once, it appears on all those channels, there's still a whole other level of things that you can do to enhance the experiences on each various channels.
I see. I got you. So what kind of tools does Microsoft give you to be able to build a bot? I mean, is it just, what am I building? What's like the artifact I'm actually building here? And what am I doing? Where am I hosting it? All that kind of stuff. What does that story look like?
Yeah. So a bot in essence is you can think of a bot in the most simplest terms as a web service that handles messages, right? And so I get a message coming in, which is whatever you said to the bot, and then a message goes back to the channel or your host and is the response of the bot, right? So at its simplest form, think of a bot as a web service. So we make it easy for you to create those bots in C# and Node.js by providing an SDK. So we have an SDK, the Bot Builder SDK, which helps you provide sort of the Visual Studio templates to build those bots in C# and Node. There's also a way to build bots using this feature called Azure Bot Services. And Azure Bot Services allows you to build bots by choosing a template. So I just go into the bot service, create a new bot, and pick one of the existing templates to start with. And that has a lot of kind of pre-built code in place already. And you could do that in Node and C# as well.
Okay.
And in that case, you're using the inline editor in the browser to write your code, or you can take that offline in Visual Studio as well.
So it's kind of like an Azure Function kind of experience then when you're building something, you're doing the whole thing in the browser. But again, you said you could still take it offline. Same kind of story.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And so those two ways are the things that help you today write bots. Now, we have stuff in the future that's coming up to make it even easier, but today that's the two basic ways you can write your bots.
That sounds pretty straightforward. What kinds of things does Microsoft provide to help you like to make your bots more intelligent, or to make your bots have a better, like your user to have a better experience with the bot and make it a little more of a seamless experience?
Yeah, so building a bot contains a couple of elements. So we talked about passing messages back and forth. So I built a bot. I'm able to connect to the channel. I'm able to handle messages, but I need my bot to have understanding. So I need to plug in a natural language processor, an NLP, like Lewis. Lewis is one of the cognitive services. It's the language understanding intelligence service. And that allows me to map utterances to intent. So an utterance is something I say. So if I say, what is the weather? I need to take that utterance and map it to an intent or a function, get weather, right? And so Lewis helps me do that. Now, in a small scale, you could just use a regex expression and do simple thing like turn the light on, and you could parse that, right? Sure. But as they get more complex, there are lots of ways people can say, what's the weather today? How's the weather? Tell me about the weather. Like all of those are variations of the get weather function, right? Or intent. And so Lewis helps you manage that part of it. But then there's other parts of the bot too. So once you have that, there's still, your bot needs to do something intelligent. Your bot needs to actually call other services to do something exciting. So in the get the weather case, I need to call a function or something that gets me the weather. So I'm going to reach out to external services. But there are also a lot of services around just cognition that we have, and we have the cognitive service to do that. So, for example, I could use a cognitive service to interpret an image that was uploaded to my bot, or I could use the translator service to support multiple languages in my bot. So even though I type something in English, on the back end, the bot's translating that to Spanish, and it can respond or listen in any various languages, right? So that's a cognitive service to help us do that. I have other services that can help me with sentiment. So I can understand not only what you said, but what was your tone? What was your sentiment? Was it a positive, neutral, or negative sentiment? And that's a cognitive service that can help me parse that text and understand the sentiment of it, right? I can have cognitive services that help me understand the entities. So when you say, what's the weather in Seattle? I can understand Seattle as an entity, and I know what that means. I mean, it's a city on the West Coast and right? So you can have all of these things we think of as like the bot brain, right? How do you make your bot intelligent? And it's done through a series of services that you create. So if I want to like look up my account balance, that would be something on my back end. Or if I want to do something more generic, like translate the text, that would be a cognitive services. But your bot in its essence is a very simple kind of application, and it relies on all of these other external services to make it intelligent.
So it sounds like then you're building a bot that is really just kind of the hub that connects what the things coming in, the text coming in, either speech or text that you're typing in or buttons that you're clicking on something, knows how to take that stuff coming in and leveraging other cognitive services, other services that Microsoft provides, or the third-party services to be able to get them back that answer. And you're being able to leverage all the stuff that you guys have in the AI suite with cognitive services and Lewis and some of the other pieces that are there. It makes it easier for you to build that, to facilitate that. So the bot is really almost like it sounds like a thin facade in a way.
Yeah. I mean, the analogy I like to use is mobile app development, right? We think about mobile app development. We have, let's say, iOS and Android. You could think of those as channels, right? And so when you build a mobile app, you don't put all of your logic in your mobile app. You write it once as a service, and then you write a thin layer in the device, whether it's iOS, Android, that then uses those services. The paradigm for bots is very similar. I just write a thin kind of orchestration layer that then leverages service that exists that I could use in other places.
It sounds like an app you have on your phone for with an airline. So you book your flights and everything, but not all that booking and everything, the reservation, picking your seats, it's not happening on the phone. It's talking to a service to do all that stuff.
That's right.
Gotcha. Okay. What kind of scenarios do you see people using the bot framework for? What kind of bots are they building today?
Yeah, I mean, it's varied. We have a lot of series of applications people are building. One of the more common ones is around informational bots, where people want to be able to respond to simple questions like, how do I reset my password? How do I print? Where do I find the store hours? Or, what kind of menu do you have? And what are your hours? Where do you park? And all these sort of things. And so this kind of informational bot is one pattern. And we have a cognitive service called Q&A Maker that allows you to easily point at an FAQ or an FAQ-like document and build a knowledge base of question and answer pairs that have a natural language query interface on top of it automatically, right? So that way I can just add that to my bot, and then I can ask these natural language questions to my bot. You can see that today, and we have a thing we call Bing bots. So if you go to Bing today and search for local restaurants, for example, in the results set of your local restaurant, you'll get a chat bot in there. So if you went to the Bing and you search for Purple Cafe in Bellevue, you'll get a chat bot, and you click on that. It's a bot that is, you can ask questions, what's parking, what's your hours, do you have vegan, all these questions. And the bot can respond to that thing, right? Now, that restaurant, the Purple Cafe, they don't have a whole set of data scientists on staff building bots for them, right?
Right.
They basically, filled out a form on Bing that asked them questions about their restaurant, and then Bing took that FAQ style thing and converts it for them automatically into this bot style interface for them. So it becomes very easy to convert knowledge that may be locked away into a conversational interface. Others that we have are, a lot of people doing enterprise bots. These are kind of things that help you do productivity. Maybe they interact with the Microsoft Graph to retrieve your calendar or update a status or create a meeting or check your mail or book an appointment or things like that, right? So these are all things that you would do against your enterprise in your environment. Others that we see are application bots. I think you talked earlier about the booking a flight. We see a lot of people taking some of the experiences that you would do on a mobile device and translating them to a bot interface so that you would be able to, for example, book that flight on Cortana, right? And build your bot and have that surfaced in Cortana. Or book that same flight using Skype or Facebook Messenger or Slack, right? They're really trying to reach out to the channels that consumers are in, right? And so as consumers use fewer and fewer apps and switch to these conversational channels, the application developers and the enterprises and companies are moving to those channels as well using chatbots, right? So it's a matter of emulating some of the functionality and recreating those as a conversational interface.
I get you. As a developer that's building a bot, do you service any kind of telemetry, or what kind of telemetry do you service? I can see how it's being used, when I can tell when people are maybe hitting a roadblock of something that I haven't seen, like a question, they're trying to get the weather, but they're asking it in a way that I didn't anticipate, or something can't figure it out. So is there a way that I can go through and I can see like what that experience is and where people are kind of like almost the optimum path? Like if I'm doing if I'm building a website, you have ways to go through and detect I know that someone's going to hit the homepage and I know they want to get to like the flight schedules for an airline. That should only take 2 clicks, but I'm seeing people going through all these different paths. Do I get that kind of information, or what kind of telemetry do I get to be able to see like how people are using my bot? Yeah, well, yes, there's more of that coming. There's that today, and we use application insights for that. Oh, okay, good. But also remember, we talked about the bot is just a web service. So however you do telemetry on web services, you can also apply those same techniques for your bots as well. I see. But we're working on a lot of tools that will help you trace those conversations and understand. And we have a lot of stuff today that can do that. Like, for example, one of the things you can do with Q&A Maker is you build your knowledge set. And the premise of AI is that it's continually learning, right? So we don't just do it once and then walk away, but it's a whole learning process. So with Q&A Maker, you can go in there and download the chat log, for example, and you can look at the log, analyze the log, and even replay that log back to the system. And so you can see what questions were asked, which questions were missed, tweak the answers, add additional phrases and utterances to the system, right? So you're constantly tweaking that, and you can do that as a subject matter expert. You don't have to be a developer to do that, right? So you're a subject matter expert on resetting passwords. I'm going to assign you this knowledge base in Q&A Maker, and you have the rights to go manage that in this GUI interface on the web, right? That's cool. You can play it back too, so you can see what the experience is like after you make some changes to the system, and to understand the things, and you can see those hit and misses really easy. Yeah, and then there's a lot of best practices and common things that are part of good design. Like for example, we worked with a company and created a retail bot that did retail queries and stuff, and we saw something like 30% of all the questions asked were, tell me a joke and what's the weather, right? And then they never asked an actual retail experience question, right? Yeah. Part of that is we're being trained by Cortana and Siri and Alexa to walk up and the first thing you say to kind of the hello world is, tell me a joke or what's the weather, right? So when you build your bots, you should also anticipate that people are going to ask those, and you should have a response for those. I can't tell you what the weather is, but let me show you, shovels we have on sale or something, right? Like whatever. But be prepared, and so that it's like, hey, this thing is stupid. It doesn't know what the weather is. To say, no, I'm not a weather bot, but so you can help people's experience with the thing, even if it's not core to what your thing is, but there's certain expectations that people have when they talk to these devices. That's interesting. I had never considered that. It's kind of funny, though. You have people showing up asking things that you're not going to anticipate. You would, naturally say, you're going to come to the app, you're going to buy a flight, or you're going to purchase a flight or book a flight on a plane. Yeah. You're not going to ask about what the weather is. But when you have the ability, people have the ability to talk to and ask it anything, then they can come up with stuff. You're not really guiding them down a path. So you want to kind of help guide them down that path. Microsoft is spending a ton of resources and time building an awesome experience on Cortana. And so did, Amazon with Alexa and Siri and Google, right? But you as a bot developer, you don't want to spend your time building that general purpose conversational agent. You'll never succeed. You want to make sure that you have a very narrow, focused, on the rails experience that guides the user to solve a task, right? Because you're not trying to create the BFF bot for your thing. You want to get them in and do a thing, reset my password. You want to have an experience that they can do something faster than they could do on the web or a mobile device, right? Using conversation. Yeah. And part of that is a good design. It's around helping them, guiding them. So, for example, another example is when you start your bot, don't start your bot saying, hi, how can I help you? Because the user's like, I don't know, make me a pizza, order me a sandwich. I have no idea what you can do. Right. So start off saying, hey, how can I help you reset your password? Or how can I help you with insurance? Or, give them some guidance of what they're going to do, and you have a much better satisfaction rate and experience with your bot. Sure. And these are just simple, non-technical design things that come with building bots, right? It's not all about technology and developers, just like we had with mobile experience. It's not about developers building the UI, but it's about this multidiscipline team that you have to put together to build bots. Gotcha. That makes sense. It's not something, if someone who hasn't built a bot, that's not something I would have anticipated that I want to pay attention to, but it makes a lot of sense. You do want to try and guide them down that path. So you don't just want to open-ended questions. What do you want to do? So that's cool. So where's the place that people should go to start learning this stuff, to try and get up to speed? Where would you send them first? Where's the best places to go get information on this? Yeah, it's a good question. So the best place to start is botframework.com. Okay. From there, it has everything to get started, to sign up, to link to the documentation.
We have a great set of documentation. It's been totally rewritten since build. So it's very easy to understand, to get started, to find topics on the things we talked about, like designing great bots. It has some walkthroughs, some hands-on labs, has some reference material, and so there's a lot of great stuff there to get started.
Awesome. So botframework.com. And that's going to give us links to, or send us to places like the Azure Bot Framework, the Azure Bot Service, and the other SDK and all that stuff where I can get to everything I need.
Yeah. To get to the Azure Bot Service, just log into portal.azure.com with your Azure account.
Just another resource you provision.
It's just another resource you provision from there.
Awesome. Anything else you want to say about bots before we wrap this up? Or?
No, I think this is good. I'm excited to see what people build. We're going to have a lot of exciting stuff coming up this fall. So we have a lot of big changes in the works. So just stay tuned and start building bots.
Awesome. Hey, Paul, thanks a lot for your time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
Give CodeShip Pro a try. More teams than ever are using Docker and Linux for their .NET applications. CodeShip Pro is a fully customizable, continuous integration and delivery service in the cloud with the best support for any team that is using .NET and Docker together and can run builds on Linux environments. CodeShip Pro comes with ready-to-use integrations for Azure, including Azure Container Service and more. It also offers a free, convenient local CLI tool that allows you to run your builds locally and is the only hosted CI/CD tool that lets you build your own environment, giving you the most control and flexibility no matter what tool or stack you're trying to use. Check out CodeShip Pro's free plan that grants 100 builds per month, unlimited projects, and unlimited users. Open source projects are always free on CodeShip. Visit codeship.com today or check out codeship.com/features/pro to learn more. Did you like this episode? Please tweet about it and drop a 5-star review in iTunes. Word of mouth recommendations are the most effective ways for us to grow the show, and we'd really appreciate it. If you have a question for us, go to microsoftcloudshow.com/questions, where you can submit it as text or record it as a WAV or an MP3, and provide a link so that we can play your question on the show. Our theme music is brought to you by Keith Ritchie. For more information on Keith's music, head to music.kritchie.com. You can subscribe to us in iTunes and the Google Play Store by searching for the Microsoft Cloud Show or via RSS at microsoftcloudshow.com, where you'll also find notes of each episode. You can also find us on Facebook, searching for Microsoft Cloud Show, or on Twitter at MS Cloud Show. And finally, sign up to our mailing list by heading over to our website and entering your email to interact with us, participate in upcoming interviews, and other cool stuff. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.